Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave Podcast, back at the Culture Wave Media Network, and we are here to discuss episode 7 of Daredevil Born Again, season 1. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined, as always, by Vinny Albano.
Hello, hello.
Vinny, we were talking before we started rolling about where the show has gone, especially since the premiere. And it was a 2-episode premiere, and you, myself, and the wonderful John Stillwagon, shout out John if you're watching, we're talking about how there were some pros, there were some cons, and then you and I came on week 3 and we discussed the late great Kamar de los Reyes playing White Tiger. And the reason I want to reference him in particular, and that character of the White Tiger in particular, is because we were both digging that storyline pretty heavily, and he was one of the only supporting characters that was given legitimate support, legitimate care in terms of the writing. And we are now on episode 7, and I have to say this is one of the bigger disappointments that I've had in television in a long time because of the way that a few supporting characters were done dirty. Now, that might be big words. That might be big statements. I think you've been enjoying this show more than I have in recent weeks. Or I've been enjoying it more than you have. But we both were talking about the perspective of where they could go with Muse as a character going into this episode and what we thought would be the rest of the season. And Muse has a very quick demise in this show. And Margarita Levieva's character of Heather also is put in a very precarious position, and it doesn't feel like, as a viewer, I cared. Now, I don't know if I'm the only one that feels this. We'd love to hear in the comments if you guys feel this way, because I am like coming on this pod bearing my soul. Because this is a character I care about deeply with Daredevil, and this is the furthest removed I've been from a show that I've cared about in a long time. How did you feel coming out of episode 7?
Yeah, I mean, you put it very well into words.
Well, thank you, Vinny.
And I 100%, yeah, of course. And I 100% agree. I don't know who is boosting the ratings of this show on IMDb. It seems like people are still loving it. I mean, this episode is at an 8.2, which I think is lower than most of the episodes on IMDb, but that's still really high. Like an 8.2 is pretty. It's a pretty bold and great rating for an episode of television. And just in general, I've been saying on the podcast week by week, like, everyone is hyping this show up. They're loving the return of Daredevil. And I've also been enjoying this show, but I don't think I've been enjoying it as much as the populace has. And this episode has really highlighted that for me. I was disappointed with this episode. Muse, badass villain. Or maybe not badass is the right word to use, because he's a terrible, disgusting, and disturbing human being. But he's crazy. He's a villainous villain. And that there was so much potential with his character. He is hinted at throughout the, White Tiger's killed. We don't know who the killer is. Then it's revealed, oh my God, it's Muse. We see a little bit of him at the end of episode 4. Just literally a shot, 2 shots we see of him. Cool. Muse is there. He's an active character. Then episode goes by. Episode 6 happens. Then we finally get Muse, a battle between Daredevil and Muse, but we get no dialogue. And it feels really abrupt and strange, at least to me. Everyone loved that episode. I also thought it was a great episode, but it did seem very abrupt and sudden, especially with no insight. And then we finally get the reveal that the kid, and we knew this because we knew the credits, but as an audience, someone who's not actively looking at the credits, it's revealed that the kid that was at Heather's
book signing
was Muse. And then in the same sequence that he is revealed as Muse, he dies. And that's it. No more Muse. That, annoyed me. There was so much potential. They were building him up. Fisk. oh my God, there's a serial killer. We got to take care of the serial killer, right? Daredevil, right? Daredevil's like, I got to get rid of this guy. He's going to hurt more people. Bad guy. And then he's just gone. And I'm like, okay, like, we never even saw the extent of how brutal this character could have been, how much of a villain this character could have been. I think of Bullseye from season 3 and how Bullseye was such a pivotal role and such a menace to not only the characters, but to everyone in New York City. And we saw it at the very first episode of this season in Born Again. Bullseye returns. He kills Foggy. He kills Foggy. And then we forget about Bullseye. He's locked up in prison for life. And Muse, I thought, was going to be the same thing. They're building him up, and we never see him actually really be... Like, we never see the effects of him as a menace. We're told that he killed a bunch of people. Mm-hmm. And we see that he obviously put White Tiger's niece in danger.
Yeah.
But she survives. And we never see really the extent to how much of a villain he could have been. And it just felt like completely wasted potential.
I think that presenting Muse as a B villain or like a villain of the week, just extending it for multiple episodes, is a real detriment to the structure of what they wanted to do with the show. I think the problem is they wanted a character that symbolically represented the worst of the worst. Again, this is a serial killer. He murdered 60 people.
Yeah.
He's referenced of killing 60 people. He's painting murals with their blood across the city of New York. And I think this episode highlighted for me what I think is the biggest negligence of this version of this show. And I'm being harsh this week. I've loved the show throughout. Like, I think even last week on the review, like, I know you liked episode 6 a good amount, but I was like, I loved episode 5. I know you weren't as crazy on episode 5. Some people liked it, some people didn't. But this week, I think it's totally justified that this is the worst episode of the season. But the biggest thing for me is that what they do in this show is they are not showing us as an audience enough. They are telling us everything. Like, for example, when Angie Kim, the detective, it's such an insane scene. When she goes into Muse's lair, they get the information from White Tiger's niece. Her name is Angela Del Toro. When Angie gets the news from her, and she goes to see the mayor, Mr. Fisk Wilson, and she's delivering him this file about how Bastion has to be Muse, and it's intercut in a very weird way too with the editing, which I didn't like either.
Yeah.
But as that's happening, she hands the file to Wilson, and Wilson reads out the file to the audience. And maybe it's me being nitpicky, but it's like, why can't we just show the brutality of who Muse is? And I'm not trying to be somebody that's like harboring for violence on television all the time. Like we had a conversation, ironically, right before we started recording about this like kind of very thing. Yeah. But if you are going to take the creative liberties of presenting a character that is a serial killer, that is essentially like a very close thing to like the Joker, like it's a similar type of archetype to the Joker for Daredevil, and you're not going to show that to the extent. I mean, even like last week when he brings Angela in there, like all we see is that he stabs her one time and then we're just seeing blood kind of pulled out of her. We're not seeing the repercussions of that. We're not seeing, again, we see hanging bodies, but they're dimly lit. You can't really see it. Like, it's just the way that they're going to give you such a rich character in terms of story and things you could do, and even in terms of like the dichotomy with the way that the show is presented as being a political show, because it very much is. This version of Daredevil is way more political than the last 3 seasons of Daredevil were, even though obviously they deal with societal pressures and they deal with the political system and corruption. We're dealing with a literal public figure in politics, and he's kind of become, unfortunately, again, a little too comic booky. Like they kind of like they're manipulating Vincent D'Onofrio's portrayal of this character, which also is bothering me so much. It's like you're seeing like the way he's written is so not well done in this episode in particular. And then you get a moment at the end of the episode, not to jump all over the place, but we get a moment in the end of the episode where his bodyguard like shoots the guy in the head, and then he just like basically is just like, oh, can you tell my wife what does she want for dinner? And I'm like, that's the Wilson I want to see.
Yeah.
Like that is Vincent D'Onofrio's interpretation of this character, not the bullshit where you're expecting him to hand feed every single line, literally like spell out everything for the audience. It's like, trust your audience. Like, we could be smart to what's happening. Like, every single thing is spoon-fed in this episode. A little bit last week, we touched upon that, the writing. Yeah. But this week in particular, it stood out like a sore thumb. And I was like, man, this is like just fine. Like, it's just fine. And that's not what Daredevil should be, and it's not what we've seen previously.
Yeah,
I ranted. I apologize.
No, you're good. I also ranted before, and I 100% agree. Is that I didn't realize it at first, but you're right. This show, or this episode particularly, was so heavy-handed in just like spoon-feeding us, like you said. Just even we finally get insight in Muse, and it feels so just cardboard and flat, because it's just him sitting there and he's like, and then this happened to me, and then this happened to me, and then this happened to me. Guess what? I'm crazy now, and I'm gonna kill you. Ha. Right? And I'm like, okay. Like, you could have presented that as a filmmaker in so many different creative ways that would have been so much more engaging and entertaining and interesting. But this entire episode, like you said, is just like, let's just explain. You know, also another great example of this is Fisk. When, you know, the police are like, oh, there was another guy here, Daredevil. The Daredevil had to be here. And then Fisk was like, well, you did your job, so present it to the media as that you were the ones to stop Muse. I almost wish they cut that dialogue and they just cut to the news report of him just being like, well, my police did it. There was no Daredevil. My police did it. That would have been so much more shocking, interesting, revealing. But we're kind of spoon-fed the plan, and it's like, I'm going to do this, and then it happens, and I'm like, okay.
I think
you could have saved some runtime there.
I was going to say, and it's less runtime, but even a simple editing technique in not letting that scene go too long, even if they still want Wilson to be the one for the more casual audiences, just to be like, to literally say to one of the members of his team, like, no, like, you're the one who did this. And again, you could tell by the way he's interacting that he's obviously trying to just kind of prop himself up by saying this. You don't then need the guy to go, yeah, I understand, Mr. Fisk, I'm gonna go now. Yeah. It's like, why? Why? Like, why is that in the scene? We don't need it. We don't need it. Yeah. And I'm probably being so nitpicky right now, but it's like, if you're making something that is so blatantly cringe-inducing because it doesn't necessarily need to be presented to extend or expand upon anything in terms of the lore, it doesn't need to be there. You can cut it from the episode. Yeah. And then I think of like, this is a little bit of I'm not going to go on a tangent, but like, for example, like there's certain shows that are on Disney Plus. Star Wars is a huge proponent of this, where they'll do like a 28-minute episode and then they'll just cut. And I'm like, the fuck just happened? There's so much room for more story there. Yeah. And it's like with this show, I feel like they were just like, well, let's just film a bunch. Let's just overly shoot. Let's just like explain everything to everybody because, and we talked about this early on, it's like some people don't know these characters, which, to be honest with you, the viewership for the show also is not great. It hasn't even made the top 10 for Nielsen streaming. Wow. Every week it's been on the air, which is, it's a Marvel property. It's on Disney Plus. It's Daredevil. Huh. So it's not reaching the same audience that the previous show on Netflix did. And you're not bringing in that much new viewership. That I don't understand why you're being so heavy-handed in the exposition of just delivering every single piece of symbolism and messaging to your audience. Like, you have to be able to trust that people can put the pieces together. You know what I mean? Even like in terms of Wilson with his motivations for the Daredevil and the Muse thing, it's like, and his right hand man kind of says this to him. He's like, I guess it wouldn't be such a bad thing if Daredevil did take out Muse for the city. And it's like, yeah, like that's another thing. I don't know why they didn't explore that, right? Like, Muse is a serial killer in the city in which Fisk is a mayor. Muse attempted to murder the therapist that is trying to save Fisk's marriage, which he said many times is the most important thing to him. Why isn't that explored? Why do they just completely ignore that as writers? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And another thing that I've been having an issue with is really just like, and then again, I don't want to be nitpicky, and I have a feeling that people are gonna be annoyed by this type of criticism, but it is how I feel, and
you're entitled, Vinny.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it. Every episode I come on this podcast, no matter what we're talking about, whenever I hop on this podcast, I try to express my unfiltered, true thoughts, what I thought when watching this episode, you know. And the one thing that I've been thinking these last few weeks in particular is there's so many opportunities for presenting this story. Remember the first episode we recorded, I said how the presentation of this show, the way the directors are going about its editing, it's just all of the filmmaking elements together presenting the script is odd to me. And going off of what you said about Fisk, this episode, last episode, there's so many moments where they're presenting Fisk not correctly. And like I said, people are going to get annoyed because this is going to be nitpicky, but it's just how I feel. And it's that there's certain moments where I'm like, wow, they could have done like a low angle shot of that. You know, they could have presented him as a character, because in the Netflix series, he is so intimidating. He's always big. He's always taking up the frame. He's always hovering and big over people. And in this, he feels really soft. Like, even when he's not being soft, he feels soft. Like, the way they're capturing him, the way they're editing his dialogue, and just everything. I hope I'm making sense here.
I think you are, because, and I think the other part of it too, and maybe this is me trying to see the glass half full approach to it, but I still don't necessarily love the direction, so I would agree with you. But it's like we've seen now so many entirely different written versions of this character now. Like, we have the Netflix show, then we go to Hawkeye, and Hawkeye, he is loud and he's rambunctious and he's a lot more uppity, and then he's played kind of half comedically, which is very strange and entirely different than what we saw in the Netflix show. Then we go to the Echo series, which you didn't watch, right?
I did not watch Echo. No.
Echo, like, and they make reference to it in the beginning when he's like, I tried to take a girl in myself, and it didn't go well. And it's like, that's what he is dealing with maybe internally, where maybe he is a little softer because the part of him that where he cared about this young girl and she kind of essentially like stabbed him in the back, like that didn't help. But it's like now the series is ramping up. He's been the mayor for, we don't even know, months at this point, most likely in terms of the start of the series. And we don't really see, we're seeing the frustration even come at times where tonally it just kind of hits you out of nowhere. Like, in the scene when he finally decides to go down and beat the shit out of the guy who's in the cell, it's like that comes at a time where he goes to that donor meeting and he meets with the swordsman and he's not getting the money that he wants, and he kind of takes that on this one guy. But it's like, so then where is that in this episode? Like he stays within himself a little bit more. He's venting to his right hand guy Buck, but there's like no real, like you said, intimidation of this character, and there should be. He's a large individual. He's a smart guy. He has a lot of people under his watch. He's the mayor of one of the most prominent cities in the entire world, and he hates vigilantes. Why is he being presented in such a way where it's taking away the gravitas of what he's been able to do. And I cannot agree with you more.
Yeah.
Because the presentation of the character is just, like you said, I mean, odd is a good way to put it. It's almost like you don't know how to approach his character every week. It's like there's something off about Vincent D'Onofrio's, I don't know, but again, if it's his performance or if it's the writing or the directing, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's just that, they've done it, like you mentioned, when he's beating up Adam, right? And you have that, like, when he's entering, I guess he takes the subway to get to the apartment, but there's that really like cool low angle shot of him going down the stairs, and he's silhouetted by the smoke with the hatchet in his hand, and he beats the shit out of Adam, and that's like, okay, that's definitely Fisk. The whole like very Godfather-esque ending scene of this episode, great, like you mentioned, that's Fisk. But then so many other of these scenes just don't feel like Fisk. I don't know if it's on purpose. They're trying to have him, his whole arc is that he's now a political figure, and he's now having to fit inside of a bubble and a mold, and he would never, he was the guy who punched his way through things, and if he didn't get his way, then you most likely end up dead, right?
Yeah.
And now that might be why they're doing it, and they're presenting his character like this, but it just doesn't feel satisfying as an audience who once feared his character. And now, like, there's moments that they're doing it right, like I said with the Adam scene, but for most of the series, we're not fearing him anymore.
Yeah.
And that's just disappointing to me, honestly.
I agree.
Yeah.
I want to give a couple of positive notes because we talked a lot of negativity.
Yeah, I want to give some positives.
So we'll move to the positives. I don't know how long we're into this episode. You're still watching. We'll move to the positives. Yeah. The last scene we've already brought up now multiple times, where Buck takes out Luca, the guy in the tracksuit mafia guy.
Yeah.
But Vanessa's character this season, Ayelet Zurer, returning from the Netflix series, she's fantastic in this show. Very understated, very underrated, I think. And her scene with Luca I thought was great. And the dynamic between her and Wilson has been one of the standouts to me. Like the kind of like, I love you to your face, but I'm going to kill you behind your back sort of thing. So that was a big standout to me. But my favorite scene of the whole episode this week was my boy Michael Gandolfini as Daniel Blake with BB. He was Tony Soprano to a T in that scene. He resembled James Gandolfini so much in that scene with like the modern flair. He's like, I'd be really stoked if you just made the right choice. But he sounded so much like Tony, and I was like, oh my God, I love this. And it's great to kind of see what the political power can kind of do to somebody that was like, he could be easily corruptible. You know what I mean? Like BB is someone that's a friend, and he's like, no, you're going to present this the right way. And if you're not, then things are going to be very difficult for you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I love that scene. So those were some standouts to me, some positive standouts.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I'm interested where they go with Michael Gandolfini's character. I liked when I said this last week, Muse's costume is great.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
It's a great look.
Yeah, beautiful costume design there. I like a majority of the fight. I think the fight choreography is pretty brutal. I like that it's in a small room and it's pretty impactful.
Him cutting him in the back was cool.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, him throwing I forget what the technical term, but I think of Scorpion.
It's like a scythe, right? Is it like a...
No, scythes are like what the Grim Reaper has.
Okay.
Yeah, I forget the technical term, but yeah, like a cable spear. That was dope. That was so cool. Obviously we talked about the ending scene, great. But overall, I do agree with the first thing you said of this episode is that this is my least favorite of the season thus far.
Yeah.
I just think it's the weakest. I don't think... It's not outwardly terrible.
I agree.
Because like we're talking about here, there are positive aspects, but it is a really disappointing episode for me.
I would agree.
Yeah.
We also have 2 episodes left of this season. So having your most disappointing episode come 2 episodes before the finale is troubling.
Yeah.
And I don't really know where they go from here.
Exactly. What are we building up to now? There's what if Muse is dead? What's the climax gonna be?
Yeah, like, are we just gonna have Heather figure out that he's Daredevil? Like, that's kind of boring to me. I think that we need, and I mean this, we need either Karen or Punisher or both in the final 2 episodes.
Oh, 100%.
Like, we need to see their characters and what they mean to the story. I think Karen coming back into the mix amongst the Heather thing would be really interesting to me. I would like to see her maybe for the final 2, and I'd love to see Punisher maybe for the finale.
Yeah.
But there were pictures on set of Punisher in the costume. So we have, unless they completely cut that out, like, we have to see Punisher in action at some point. We have one scene with Frank, and it's, in my opinion, the best scene of the show thus far.
Yeah. I think, now that I did say, like, what are they building up to? I take that back. I think the climax, I think we're going to see Punisher, because now that I'm thinking about it, really this season has been building up to the whole police conflict.
The task force.
Yeah. And them, misinterpreting the Punisher symbol. Frank is obviously aware of this. This might be like a vigilante versus police department showdown for the climax, but still disappointed that Muse got booted off.
He got axed too quick, man.
Yeah.
We need to see more of Muse. They did Muse dirty, but
yeah.
Well, we were a little negative this week, but that's all right. I mean, we're curious. What are your guys' thoughts on this week's episode of Daredevil Born Again? You guys agree with us? Are you guys, again, it is the lowest rated episode on IMDb, so I do think that people are leaning more on our side, but if you guys disagree, we'd love to hear your comments there as well. We're always willing to have a conversation with you guys. If you guys can give this video a like, we'd really appreciate it, and subscribe to us here at the Culture Wave Media Network. We're not only covering Daredevil Born Again, we're also covering The Studio, which we just recorded previously before we did this one. Vinny actually hopped on that last episode with us. He's enjoying the show. We are wrapping up our coverage with The White Lotus. We have all of our episodes up on Severance, all our episodes on Invincible. There is a Solo Leveling Season 2 review up. We have Common Side Effects review upcoming for you guys as well that Vinny hopped on. We got movie reviews coming for you guys. There's tons of stuff. So check all that out if you guys can. Share with your family and friends. And you can follow us on all our social media if you guys want to do that too. That's all below me currently in the video. It's also in the YouTube description. So we'd really appreciate it. Just signing off. I'm Darian Scalamoni.
Now I've been Vinny Albano.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.